Hello, ladies and gents. This is a something that's been kind of a long time coming, but still, it's a fairly interesting story to tell. So, yeah, I'm finally doing Game of Thrones. And many of you who are sort of old to the channel or have seen any of my older videos from, let me see here, a few years ago, I guess in 2019. Yeah, I did attempt and tried to review the first season of Game of Thrones. However, with my young brain, I knew a lot of good storytelling and stuff like that. I just couldn't really dive into the whole thing with like, okay, there's not a lot of violence in these first few episodes, at least in my eyes. There was a ton of sex and a lot of really, really boring dialogue. But as many of you probably know and have done so as well, I started reading the book. That's right. I'm starting to go through the massive, massive book that is a Game of Thrones, and that's like the shorter version, right? That's like the shorter book. I, uh, I mean, there's books that have been read through Audible or whatever, which is where I kind of, you know, help with the reading process in my eyes. I read along with the audiobook and all that on Audible. Audible has like, I don't know, a Feast for Kings or something like that. I think that's the name of it. I don't know. I'm not fully up to the lore and all that quite yet, but I know one of the books is like 47 hours long. I mean, come on, that's like 2 day, a little under 2 days. I mean, oh my gosh. But anyway, though, we're not talking about the books right now. We're talking about the epic with a very kind of terrible end. Game of Thrones, the TV show. Yes, the one that kind of rebooted the, uh, the fantasy genre on television, in film, kind of, but especially through television and streaming services, because nowadays every streaming service has at least one epic fantasy being made or already made, like with The Witcher. There's another Avatar show for Netflix. Um, what else? I guess you can call C. C is kind of a fantasy show for Apple TV Plus, I guess. There's oh gosh, Outlander for Stars. I mean, there's just so many. There's so many fantasy things coming out these days, and even House of the Dragon, which is a expanded Game of Thrones show and all that from the same author George R. R. Martin's Fire and Blood book, which apparently is getting a sequel. Good luck with that. But anyway, though, no shade to George, but I mean, just get Winds the Winter done, and then we could talk about another sequel to Fire and Blood or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, though, we're talking about the first episode, and that is Winter is Coming. And no, can't watch the pilot because the pilot isn't available for us normies anymore or anything like that. It's kind of, I don't know, not in the realm of watchability. But anyway, though, watched Winter is Coming, like my third entry into a Game of Thrones show, and yeah, it's better knowing what the heck is going on. And here's the thing, too. I don't necessarily. You gotta really sit with this show, right? You really have to just let the show kind of take its toll on you. You gotta let gotta let it simmer. That's where my, I guess, uh, downfall with this show in the past was that I tried to binge it, and you can't really binge this show. It's a little too heavy for a binging for most people, including myself. So, for me at least, you kind of have to let it simmer. Like, I don't know, watch the first episode and then let it simmer for like a couple days and then watch the second episode because it's very heavy. The lore is very thick. And yeah, I mean, granted, right? Like, one of these Game of Thrones books is the equivalent to the entire Lord of the Rings book, like the entire trilogy, which is, again, very, very thick. The very thick book. And yeah, A Game of Thrones, like the first novel, is the same thickness as the all the Lord of the Rings trilogy of books. So yeah, it's gonna be you're gonna have to really just let it simmer. Okay, you can't just go in and just go at it. Some people can. Some people can. I'm not saying that you can't, but for me at least, I gotta let it simmer. So what happens in this episode? There will be spoilers, of course. Well, if you haven't watched it by now, it's like over 13 years now, which is also the same time that we were promised the Winds of Winter or whatever, but it's been 13 years. I'm again not harshing on George, just want to read the book, but still, I'd rather read the book. I'm kind of frustrated with that, but let George do his thing. Don't rush it, George. Just keep at it. But anyway, though, what is this episode about? Well, it starts out. This episode, for the most part, really is just the first couple chapters of the book, kind of condensed and basically straight up taken out of the book for the most part. Not everything, of course, but a lot of things are literally just taken out of the book, like the prologue. The prologue is almost not everything, but almost like straight up taken out of the book. And it opens up with these couple guys who just find a White Walker and decide to just haul butt for their glory of the Night's Watch and all that type of stuff. There's we get introduction to the Stark clan, if you will, with Sean Bean. That's right. If you thought he was done with the fantasy genre, oh no, he's back. He's Ned Stark, ladies and gentlemen. First he was First he was in the Lord of the Rings, and now he's in Game of Thrones. He's like a double icon, if you will. The double icon of fantasy. But anyway, so we get all the main characters that we're going to be following, the Stark clan. We get, Bran always climbing and all that. Oh, foreshadowing, whatever. And then we get the Lannisters coming in, kind of like saying, "Hey, we're here." The king's wanting you to be his hand, his big helper and all that type of thing because Ned and the king have actually had a past together. Ned helped the king kind of overthrow the Mad King, and now everyone in King's Landing is all corrupt, so he wants a non-corruptible person at his right hand. So yeah, and then there's sexual jokes, whatever. But the best, I'll tell you this, the best story of this show so far, and I've talked about this in the previous videos, is I don't I color me shocked, but I love the Daenerys Targaryen's plot. I'm sorry. I know it's going to go to crap, but I don't know. I just love this story. And it's kind of a story as old as time, the kind of slave becoming like the head of the army or whatever and head of the world basically. It's a story as old as time. It's yeah, I get it, but at the same time, I can't not love it. It's so good. But yeah, we get one of the things that's different from the book. Everyone's aged up, which is in my eyes good, especially for a certain like makes a certain scene where the Dothraki warlord, who is uh Jason Momoa, aka Aquaman, yeah, he came from this show, like rapes Daenerys, and I don't condone this at all, but at the same time, I would think it's a lot worse to stomach if she was 13, like in the book. Again, not condoning it, it's just a little bit easier to swallow than it was in the book when she was 13. Well, let's just put it that way. And again, it's very, very harsh, but it makes her like coming of age, like the Phoenix Rising type of thing later on in the show, which I know is coming, makes it all the more powerful. I'm looking forward to seeing her come up and like just take over the Dothrakis and all that type of stuff. But the big thing, and of course, the big thing, the uh, uh the incest going on here with Cersei and Jamie and all that, and then Bran getting pushed out the window and being crippled, and that's the rest of his life for the most part, and that's pretty sad. But that it's kind of an episode that kind of shows what Game of Thrones is and where it's gonna go. Apparently, I haven't read the entire book yet or the entire series yet. I'm still working on it, but according to many booktubers, if you will, there's a lot less sex in the book apparently compared to the show. The show HBO, of course, they used to show a lot of um not so savory things on their channel before they started their original series and all that type of stuff. So yeah, it kind of makes sense. Around this time, they were still showing a little bit of it. It was like in their backlog, but now they just took it off for obvious reasons. But yeah, they kind of they're still meshing with it a little bit. They're kind of still meshing with it. But anyway, though, didn't like necessarily the sexualness of it. I'm sorry, I'm a prude. Shoot me, whatever. But gotta say though, I'm liking the story more. I'm understanding the story more in this third watch, and I hope that it's going to kind of expand further. Sansa, no disrespect to the actress, of course, but she is just unbearable. She's like the normal teenage girl trope that I absolutely hate. Just whining, complaining, and all that type of stuff, and whatever. And I get it. That's kind of what her character is at this point, but still, it's just I don't like it. I I want her to shut up, basically. And again, it's not her fault, not the actress's fault. She's a great actress. She's I one of the bearable things about X-Men Apocalypse and X-Men Dark Phoenix. She was great in those couple movies, but it was just in this show up to this point, she's kind of unbearable, the writing wise and all that type of thing. Her sister Anya, Arya, not Anya, Arya, actually, I'll get into this in the next few episodes, but I can see a lot of potential with her. She's a little bit more whiny in this episode, but it's she's not unbearable. to say the least. Not unbearable in the slightest. And Jon Snow, of course, Ned's bastard son, who, yeah, there's a big, huge bastard thing in Game of Thrones. He, of course, Jon Snow, not that bad either. Not bad of a guy at all. And, yeah, he's kind of the unspoken star of the show. In my eyes, it might be some other people, but I don't know. There's a lot of really big focus toward Jon Snow, and I'm really enjoying it. But yeah, everyone else, I mean, it's kind of like a. This is kind of. How can I explain this? There's a lot. I don't know why I get this vibe, but before the Lannisters come in, and before like the whole incest thing, like House Stark kind of seems like a normal sitcom type of thing, you know? There's like not a care in the world for these kids or the parents and all that. They're all happy. Except for, the mother and Jon Snow, but whatever. And, Ned killing the Night's Watcher guy after, him abandoning his post and all that. But other than those two things, which are pretty small in this episode, it almost seems like a sitcom. It's very like nonchalant, nothing really bad happening for the most part. And maybe that's just me, I don't know. But I know this is not going to last, and it's definitely not going to stay with this show. But anyway, though, guys, that's my hot take for Game of Thrones Season 1, Episode 1. Winter is coming. What do you guys think? Is this the episode that kind of kickstarted the whole series and all that? Is this where, as Entertain the Elk, one of the great YouTubers that I watch a lot, would say that this is where Game of Thrones was born? What are your guys' thoughts? Leave it down in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell. More vids come your way, and hey, take care, guys.